This is BBC News. I'm Chris Eakin. The headlines at 3. The US and Russia agree a deal on Syria's chemical weapons. Damascus is told to give UN inspectors immediate access.
There can be no games, no room for avoidance, or anything less than full compliance by the Assad regime.
Well, Imogen Folks there in Geneva, of course. With me now is Sakhr Al-Makhadhi, a journalist specialising in Syria. He's reported from there many times over the last decade, spent a lot of time in London as well. Hello to you. So what do you make of what they've agreed in Geneva? Well,
an incredibly surprising agreement, not just because it's happened, but because it's happened so quickly as well. Syrians, though, are understandably furious. They wanted action to be taken. They wanted action to be taken on
When you say Syrians, I mean...
Some Syrians, of course. Syrian opposition members, rebels, a large proportion of the Syrian civilian population as well, had wanted to see a larger military action or some kind of Western involvement in the country. What has been agreed today is basically a hands-off approach. It's the US taking Russia's side and agreeing basically with the Assad regime that it will follow the Assad regime and Russia's proposals rather than taking any stronger action.
And yet you would never have predicted, would you, 2 weeks ago even, that Assad would agree to allow the world onto his territory and would agree to destroy all his chemical weapons by the middle of next year?
Well, the Assad regime is very, very clever at playing the international community. It knows exactly which levers to pull and how to play different countries off against each other. So, yes, it looked like the world was on the verge of attacking Syria in a military form, although it was going to be a very small scale and didn't look like it was going to force any kind of regime change. But now it's averted that course and seems to have pushed the US into Russia's arms.
But that's an interesting point, because it looked like the world was about to attack. I mean, did it? It looked like the US might have, that France might have. John Kerry's own words were that it would be a very small attack. There was no guarantee of winning the congressional vote. In some respects, you would have expected Damascus to want to sit back and allow this to play out, and the Americans to trip over themselves.
Well, exactly. There were some who were saying, well, you know, the Assad regime would be delighted with a small-scale strike because it would allow them to show that they've beaten the world's strongest army, because they would have carried out symbolic strikes, because it wouldn't have threatened the regime in any way, and the regime would have come out on top.
Which points to having been pressurised by Russia to agree to this weapons against their wishes, does it not?
I think it was a slippery slope. I think it's a chain of unexpected events that have taken place that have led us to this event. I think, you know, David Cameron's decision to go to the House of Commons and take that vote was really the thing that set everything off in motion and set us away from a collision course militarily with Syria. Then there was John Kerry's almost off-the-cuff response to a journalist's question about whether the US would turn its face away from military strikes if the Assad regime turned in its chemical weapons, that pushed us along this course. I mean, you know, the problem in Syria has been that the US and Russia have failed to come to an agreement for 2.5 years. That stalemate has pushed the world into ignoring the Syrian problem and failing to take any kind of decisive action, whichever action that may have been. The fact that they've now come to some kind of agreement is leading a lot of people to a very optimistic prediction that this may lead to a wider set of agreements, that agreements could be reached on halting the flow of arms into Syria to both sides in the conflict.
You're sceptical?
I think we're a long, long way from that. I think that the channel of communication is finally open, the channel of communication that really should have been open right from the beginning. But there are so many more steps before we reach any kind of ceasefire or peace treaty. That's a distant dream at the moment, but it couldn't have happened without an agreement like today's.
OK, Sakhr Al-Makhadhi, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.